You're loading the dishwasher when your 8-year-old says, almost casually, "I think there's math homework due tomorrow. I left it at Mommy's." You stop. The bag is at the second home.
If you're listening, something at home has shifted. Maybe recently, maybe a long time ago. Welcome, I'm Remy. This is CoParentSpace, the calm space for parents and children living between two homes. What you'll hear is grounded in attachment science and clinical research. It isn't therapy, and it isn't medical or legal advice. If you or your child are struggling, please talk to someone who can help in person. This is a quiet place to think. It doesn't take sides. Here's today's piece. Tuesday, 7 p.m. You're loading the dishwasher when your 8-year-old says, almost casually, "I think there's maths homework due tomorrow. I left it at Mommy's." You stop. The bag is at the second home. The maths sheet is at the second home. Tomorrow is a school day. You message the co-parent. They reply, "Yes, the bag is there. They'll do the maths sheet with the child tomorrow morning before school." Done. 40 minutes of low-grade panic resolved. Now multiply that across the school year. Today's episode is about how to make homework not be the thing that breaks every week. It is not about the right way to do homework. There isn't one. It is not about who's doing more of the homework supervision. Often that's the wrong question. It is about the structural problem. Homework is a daily rhythm thing, and your child lives on a multi-day rotation between two homes. Those two cycles don't line up. Without a small bit of structure, the friction shows up in the child first.
The thing not to do. Turn homework into the test of whether the child is doing okay. They will sense the test. They will fail it more. A small clinical note, used silently. The night before a handover, the relay night, is not the night to start a new homework project, push through reading practice the child is dragging on, or have the conversation about how poor last week's spelling test was. The night before a handover, the child's attention is already half elsewhere. They're doing the small internal work of getting ready to go. They're not difficult. They're not lazy. They're regulating. On handover eve nights, do the homework that's already in motion. Don't open new fronts. The new front can wait until they're settled into the next home, or come back to you midweek. The landing. Tuesday, 7 p.m. The math sheet is at the second home. You message. They reply. Tomorrow morning, the math sheet gets done.
What made this a small problem instead of a big one is mostly invisible. The bag travels. The handover note has been working for months. The co-parent is willing to do a 40-minute Wednesday morning math session because last week you did a Sunday evening reading practice they couldn't have managed. None of that was the homework. The homework was the thing the system carried. If your homework week is breaking weekly, the homework isn't the problem. Look one layer down.
3 things to settle, roughly in this order. Where the homework lives, who does what when, what gets shared between homes. Most of the rest is about staying out of the way once those 3 are sorted. The bag is the system. Most homework problems are bag problems. A child who carries the same school bag between homes solves about 70% of the homework friction by accident. The math sheet is in the bag. The reading record is in the bag. The note from the teacher is in the bag. Whichever home the child lands in tonight, the homework is with them. A child whose bag stays at one home and gets ferried back and forth every other day, by car, by message-coordinated pickup, has a much harder homework week. The bag becomes a thing both adults track. It gets forgotten. It's at the wrong home on the night the math sheet is due. Move the bag. Make the bag travel with the child.
The exception. Very young children, where the school bag is more for the parent's reference than for the child to manage. For a 5-year-old who isn't yet reading their own homework planner, the bag may live with the parent who has the homework conversation that night. Even then, build toward the bag travels with child pattern as the child grows. By age 7 or 8, the bag should be the child's, and it should travel. A second item, the Friday folder, or the weekly pack, or whatever your child's school sends home for the week. Some schools send home a folder of materials each Friday for the week ahead. That folder, like the bag, travels with the child. The parent who has the child on Friday afternoon does the brief unpack. What's in here, what's due when, the folder stays in the bag. If the folder gets left at one home, you have a real problem midweek. The simplest fix is for the folder to live in the school bag. It doesn't get pulled out and put on a kitchen table. It stays in the bag, like a passport. Who does what when?
Once the bag travels, the next question is who does what? The simplest agreement. Whoever has the child that night is the homework parent that night. Reading practice, spelling words, the math sheet, the small daily things. The parent on duty handles them. This agreement does 3 useful things. It removes the "is this your night or mine" message. It puts the child in a single predictable rhythm, regardless of which home they're in. And it stops homework from becoming a thing the parents coordinate about, which is where most of the friction lives. Larger items are different. Long-term projects, big essays, exam preparation, those can't be done in one evening, so the question of whose night doesn't apply. 2 patterns work. Either one parent owns the project because they have the relevant knowledge, the weekend hours, or the patience, and the other parent supports it on their nights. Or the project follows a small written plan. This stage by Tuesday, this stage by Friday, the rest the week after. The child is the one who knows the plan. Both parents follow what the child says. Some projects are real school deadlines. The history project worth 1/3 of the term grade. The science fair board due Friday. These are not whose night is it items. They're project items. Treat them like a small home renovation. There's a deadline, there's a rough plan, there's a lead, there's a finish. If you're the lead on a project, message the co-parent at the start. We've got the volcano due Friday. Plan is research Tuesday, paint Thursday, photos Friday morning. Not for permission, for coordination. They may take Wednesday's bit, they may not. Either way, when the volcano gets handed in on Friday, neither parent is surprised by what's in it. A note on standards. Some parents check homework carefully and ask for it to be redone if it's sloppy. Some sign and move on. These are not the same approach. If you and your co-parent run different homework standards, the child notices. The fix isn't to align the standards. You can't, and trying creates more friction than it solves. The fix is to be honest with the child, that yes, mommy checks more carefully and daddy doesn't, and that's how it is. The child can hold that. What you don't want is the homework that quietly gets done twice. A tick at one home, a redo at the other. If your standards differ widely enough that the child is doing the same homework twice in a week, talk to your co-parent. Not to align standards, but to find out what's happening. Often the answer is simpler than it looks. The information note. The smallest practical thing that changes the most. A 1-line note at handover. Whatever channel you use, the app, WhatsApp, a slip in the school bag, when the child moves between homes, the parent handing over passes one piece of information. Did the math sheet, didn't get to the reading. Spelling test on Friday. That's it. 1 line. This is not a logbook. It's not a daily report. It's the homework equivalent of, "Hi, the kids ate well. The youngest has a slight cough." Functional, brief, predictable. The reason it matters. Without it, the parent receiving the child has to investigate. The child doesn't always remember what was assigned. The child sometimes says we already did it when half of it is left. The school's communication app shows what's set, but not what's done. A 1-line note from the parent who saw last night's homework cuts the investigation time to 0.
If you and your co-parent are in a low-conflict relationship, this is easy. If the relationship is harder, the one-line note format helps. It's brief enough to feel like a logistic, not a conversation. It doesn't invite reply. It doesn't require trust beyond "you saw what happened, you're telling me what happened." If your co-parent doesn't reciprocate, if you send the line and they don't, keep sending yours. Eventually, they may catch up. If they don't, your child still benefits from your half. The parent receiving them at your home knows what's been done. When homework is the thing that breaks. A meaningful share of co-parented children develop a homework problem in the first year after separation. Not because the homework is harder, because homework is the daily, low-stakes proving ground where everything else can show up. The child who's anxious about the schedule will sometimes shut down at the homework table on a handover night. The child who's working out their grief will sometimes put their head down on the math sheet. The child who's stuck between two parents with very different standards will sometimes do the homework once and call it done, twice and feel resentful, or none at all. When homework is repeatedly the place where the day falls apart, homework probably isn't the issue. Your read of what's underneath shapes the response. If the child is anxious about the rhythm of the week, the steadier you can make the rhythm, the better. If the child is grieving, sit beside the homework rather than across from it. If the child is being asked to do the same thing twice in two homes, simplify with the co-parent. If the child is just very tired by the time they get to homework, move it earlier in the evening or into the morning. If the child is doing homework competently at one home and falling apart over it at the other, that's information. The information isn't the co-parent is failing the child. The information is something about the texture of the home where it's falling apart isn't working for this kind of task right now. Maybe there's a younger sibling making noise. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe the table is in the wrong room. Maybe the parent's work has been more demanding this month, and the child can sense the parent's distraction. The fix is local, not blame-based.
That's today's piece. If it helped, the full written version, and more like it, are at CoParentSpace.com. Be gentle with yourself. I'll be here next time.